And Don McGregor's pushing more towards somewhat what is in Africa, but then they also had, was it a Savage Land in there, which no one's played up after that?
Well, yeah, they wanted to have the whole dinosaur aspect, but nobody's revisited that.
Come on,
I don't know if
this
that's-
got some dinosaurs.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think that's bad. That's bad.
I don't.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe, here in this great hall of justice, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
So, listen, we're talking about Wakanda. So a question was brought up, hey, is Wakanda a magical place? Is it like Asgard? And so one of the things we wanted to delve into the question is, with these two minds that we have here, Cal and Petey, is it like Wakanda? I mean, is it like Asgard?
Yes, of course.
You know what I'm trying to say? Is that one of the reasons why it's always been so difficult to get to Wakanda? Why it wasn't found?
What was it? In the early ones, that's what I know more, is that at some point it had the technology, but they still had some of the traditional garb and clothing and whatnot, and the same traditions. As it's gone further, it's pushed it more towards, I think in Don McGregor's pushed it more towards somewhat what is in Africa, but then they also had, was it a Savage Land in there, which no one's played up after that?
Well, yeah, they wanted to have the whole dinosaur aspect, but nobody's revisited that.
Come on,
I don't know if
this
that's-
got some dinosaurs.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think that's bad. That's bad.
I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad because it worked with McGregor. It worked with Don McGregor rather, but somebody else will pick it up and it turns into Dark Knight's Metal. Sometimes it may just be better for it to be left alone.
So then, from this point, from the longest run, which would be Christopher Priest's run, can you talk more about that and the aspect of that in comparison to Reggie Hudlin's Wakanda?
Oh, Hudlin's anyway. Well, places like Wakanda, Asgard, Paradise Island, Smallville, they're all these idyllic places where the heroes can go. They're born there, they're raised there, and they can gain the values and the morality they need before they're going to venture forth, into the regular world. That's Wakanda is along those same particular lines. Thor gains all of his experience in Asgard, then he comes to Midgard and he's the hero, for the people. Same thing. Smallville, Superman gets all of the skills that he needs, and then he's going to come out over here and be the hero. So that's pretty much Wakanda at the end of the day. Wakanda doesn't change that much during Priest run, as opposed to what was doing with Don McGregor. The biggest thing that he played up was, Don McGregor tried to play up, the whole series was set in Wakanda for the most part. So we actually got to see things, more of the locale, traditions, things that would be local color for Wakanda within Don McGregor's run. Priest extrapolates off that and really enhances the technology of the whole thing. So there were some things that he added, like, okay, there's like a fight between Black Panther and Killmonger, and the fight rules, these are the particular rules they would go by. Okay, no big deal, but the technology was really enhanced as opposed to what Don McGregor did. And you have to remember that Don McGregor did 3 different runs because he did Panther's Quest, which was he did Panther's Quest, which was his run in Jungle Action. Then he did another run, which was Panther's Prey. He did Panther's Prey, which was a 4-issue limited series, and then he did one more run, which was in Marvel Comics Presents, those little shorts. I can't recall the name. It was Panther's. It was Panther something. Unfortunately, I can't recall it right now. But that one was set almost entirely in South Africa. He was looking for his mother. So the technology is really played up. Hudlin, I don't know. Hudlin had an established Wakanda, and I think it kind of leads into what Coates does, because Hudlin's Wakanda is more like, okay, the thing that he really wanted to pick on was that Wakanda was like Vietnam, that he was like, there's countries in the world that have never been beaten, and he's like, Wakanda's like that country, like Vietnam. I was like, no, Vietnam has been beaten. It was under Chinese rule for a very long time, you idiot. But hey, it's too hard to open up a book. So, but then the whole thing became these battles of people trying to come in and subjugate Wakanda, and of course, Black Panther will repulse it. The biggest one being with Secret Invasion, with the Skrulls coming in, and that was the fruition of the Priest run, where T'Challa is supposed to have a contingency for anything. So even if the Skrulls come, he has a contingency for that sort of thing. Then we get to Ta-Nehisi Coates' run, where Wakanda is totally decimated by internal strife and civil war. Thanks, Coates.
Well, we know that. Well, it could be. The other problem is, like, I was going to add in a defense, but we know most writers are like, oh, if I leave this broken, I can get more stories out of it. So I can't give the defense of it could possibly fix it, because that's old style comic books. Whereas, like, like I guess Alan Moore or Chris Claremont, it's like, if I leave, Professor Xavier's in space, it leads to Magneto joining the team and them doing all these wacky things. So I can't give any defense for that. So it's out there.
But I mean,
Wakanda's in hell. Sorry.
haven't they done that with Themyscira and Asgard that have been attacked and taken over and damaged? I mean, this is just, like you said, it's just a common.
But the classic writers will put it back together. And people will be like, oh, it's a mess. And then you come back, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with it.
And you're talking about two places that actually lend themselves to those types of stories of battles. Themyscira is, or Paradise Island, they're supposed to be there containing certain demons to keep them from being unleashed. So eventually they've got to be unleashed so they can fight, so we can at least see that. Asgard, Ragnarok, they're continuously trying to keep, that from coming. But it would be something like if there was a civil war in Smallville. It would just be out of line at the end of the day. Same thing if you go to Wakanda. Wakanda is this ideal. I've said it before. Wakanda is this idyllic place in Africa, okay, where in reality the majority of Africa is the furthest thing from idyllic. Civil war is a happenstance thing, and then you have Coates on the book, and Coates writes from this whole thing of a fractured society, at least from the point of race in the United States. He gets the chance to write the Black Panther. I'm like, okay, fine. What's your vision? Show us what your vision is for what you believe a country could be like that's totally integrated with black people who are on the level that you believe black people should be treated. We don't get that. We get civil war and strife and fracturing at the end of the day. So it's a missed opportunity, I believe, on his part to speak to some of those things that he's very critical of. He's got the bully pulpit right now. Black Panther is selling better than any other time that any other writer has been on it. And again, it's the same thing we're talking about with metal. You can't control the quality of the story, and you can't control who's going to buy it. And for some reason, the quality is not where it was with previous stories, but the people willing to buy it are just, the numbers that the Black Panther would be doing, if this had been the numbers when Christopher Priest was on the book, you could say, all right, great storytelling, so of course people want to buy it. It would be a no-brainer. You look at this, and you juxtapose the quality of the stories with the people buying it, and you have to scratch your head. It's like, is this what people really want to read? Fracturing, disjointed storytelling, totally, mythos just broken in half. Is this what they're really attracted to at the end of the day? I can't even say yes or no to it, because I would have to see how they would respond to the Black Panther being written to the same sort of quality and level that Priest, Don McGregor, even Stan Lee and Jack Kirby wrote, as opposed to what we're getting right here. This is very commonplace storytelling. But Petey just said, break it apart and I can get more stories about it. Mm-hmm. And then my run is going to end not with everything coming back together. My run will end with the war finally being over. Okay, and then I'll just leave the broken pieces over here and let somebody else play with them. It's just a poor show. I think it's a poor show of writing for a character like the Black Panther, who's like a King Arthur type character at the end of the day. You can only get one final battle for Camelot. That's it. Okay, and the final battle means it's over at the end of the day. Wakanda's in that same sort of vein, where if you put this sort of battle together and you really push it, what's left at the end of the day when it's over?
Well, going to the classic writers, there's one of the things that I think an editor said to, it was Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith when they were doing Daredevil. They're like, oh, you want to use, they asked for Mysterio, and I think it's Ralph Macchio said, well, do whatever you want with him, but just don't kill him. And as the story built steam, when it gets to the end, Mysterio kills himself in the story, and then the Spider-Man people start bringing him back, and they're like, how could you do this to the Daredevil story? And it's like, no, we told them if it came out on time, Mysterio would come back maybe a year later, but the book was so late.
Right.
As that came back, the Spider-Mans, they're doing a story with Mysterio, and they're like, wait a second, how can you explain it? And it's like, and people are like, no, why would you ruin this story? And it's like, well, he's also Mysterio. He can fake his death. It's like, no, because he had cancer and all this other stuff. And he's like, and he finally did something good. It's like, no, he's a good villain now. Why would you get rid of him? And that's the aspect of where writers are like saying, no, this is a permanent story. It lasted and it's perfect. But it's like when you have Wakanda destroyed, then a new writer comes in and is like, I got to pick up these pieces. I wanted to use the technology, and now I got to fix it for the next 6 issues. And then the same fans are running out who are not buying it, saying, "Don't read it. He's putting it back together."
The new guys will come on. This is great. Look, dinosaurs.
So basically, Wakanda is a mythical place.
Not idyllic at the end of the day.
No one's gotten into the aspect because you see it when they fly over, but when Kirby does the flyover, I don't know what that first shot is because it looks crazy. Like when you go through whatever it is that's supposed to be masking it, it looks so technical, it looks so advanced, and then when you get there, it just sets up like where did they go? Like this is really, it's like almost like the distortion area in the negative zone. I was like saying, what is it? Like this is amazing.
Yeah,
But,
it's like all those idyllic places. For some reason, they're hard to find. They're hard to get to. You know, Paradise Island. You can't necessarily find it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Is there anything else to add, gentlemen? Or we've covered it all.
We need to have it a place where you'd want to go. When at the same like as you're reading Priest or Don McGregor, I'm looking at the Kirby and I'm like, I want the lion mane mask. I want to be able to be there with all this cool stuff and see the big,
It was
big
that
panther.
amalgamation. It was an amalgamation of a lot of different African regalia with the the lion masks and the Zulus. The Zulu short spears. The Ashanti headdresses. Because the Wakanda wasn't a real place, so they could just we can just throw in everything right over there. And it works because it wasn't a real place. So you could literally pick any aspects that you like, and it was it was just a lot of fun. But for me, it's the biggest thing. I was watching Black Lightning the other day, and I didn't enjoy it. Because it seems that anytime you have a show, with the principal characters are black, there's a checklist of things that have to happen on this show. And I'm just sitting there checking the box, and then when they pull up the police car with the white policeman coming out, I was like, yep, okay, we're done. I don't need to really watch any more of this. Wakanda was someplace that was absent of all of that, This was a place where you didn't, race is not a factor here, Everybody's African, race is not a factor, This was someplace that was outside of that particular thing, of all the colonialism, any of the war-torn stuff, and we get to see, this is what could happen if this place was allowed to develop naturally without any outside interference, and nothing was going to hinder or impede them.
But ethnicity is. I mean, you have different groups in the map.
Not in Wakanda. Not in Wakanda. They have the fights with the man-ape, and you had the fights with the other. But T'Challa was able to rule everybody as one people, He was able to keep all that stuff together, and they just decided, hey, you know what? Everybody likes to bring their postmodernism into it. We're like, hey, no, there's no way these guys could be getting on. They would be fighting all the time, and they would be doing this. And I'm like, why? Why? Why is that necessarily always the outcome? So we talk about this type of stuff, and then when you get it, it's like, no, this can't be. We've got to break it up. We've got to fracture it at the end of the day. And it was, Wakanda is this place where you could go and like, look, I can just read some stories, with people who happen to look a certain way, but they're still regular human beings just trying to get through this particular stuff. And it was cool. Instead,
regular human beings do fight and argue and discuss and have problems. Regular human beings, I mean, if you look at in Olympus, you have Ares constantly pushing the envelope. If you look at Asgard, you have Loki constantly pushing the envelope. So it doesn't seem out of place to have that also.
Olympus is dysfunctional, and it's dysfunctional from start to finish when we're introduced to Olympus. We would expect it to be dysfunctional, just like Asgard, These guys fight all the time. Wakanda is not that place.
Well, I mean, to an extent, you also have, like Killmonger, and you have the elements that they go through. So it's not like totally... It's nothing. There's stuff there for story.
It's not Pollyannish.
Yeah.
There's he has difficulties, but not to the point that the country is war torn, but the Civil War.
And he's like, what was it like? Was it at the end of his run where he's just like, how did this happen? How you don't want to end up leaving the story and it's like we got to pick up the pieces. So I don't know. We tried.
In Priest Run, I think the initial run, Black Panther on Priest Run is issue 1 to 49. That's before I think he brings in Casper Cole and a whole bunch of stuff starts changing up. And the last portion is this battle between the exponents of the white gorilla cult and the Black Panther cult. Okay, they're once again they're going to come over and try to take this. But Priest is able to settle all of that in that issue. It's not something that dragged on for another 10 or 15 issues or such. And we got to see the complexity of him having to be a king, of him having to keep the country together, of him having to try to maintain peace between these different factions within Wakanda, these different tribes in Wakanda. Okay? But it worked. It's not impossible. This guy was up to the challenge. He was like, no, I am the king of everybody here of this particular country. And that was the whole thing. That's what we're supposed to get from literature at the end of the day. Some ideas. Not getting that right now.
King.
Okay, one other thing. Wakanda. What other places are in Wakanda that,
Well,
I mean, from what we see on the map?
According to the map,
we have.
some of these places are new. They didn't. No, some of these places didn't exist before. Like that Necropolis, the city of the dead.
Necropolis over here.
That didn't exist before. Look, you have the central city with the Great Panther statue. Then there's another section where you have the vibranium mound. There was I'm going by the old map that Don McGregor made, which is actually the first map of Wakanda. Okay, then you would have the section where the dinosaurs would run. You have the only reason why I remember, this that river or the falls, is because Killmonger got knocked off of it in Jungle Action 18 when they had their final battle in that particular storyline. But aside of that, the major place is where the Panther is where the Great Panther that's where the Great Panther statue is, and that's like central. That would be the capital. But to be honest, the majority of Wakanda is still open for exploration at the end of the day, because most of the action takes place in the central city where the king, of course, would be. And there's other places that have been introduced and then vanished, like the dinosaurs. As you can tell, we would like to see the dinosaurs come back.
We might have some fun with the dinosaurs, especially in Black Panther. The cover where he's in the mouth of a dinosaur.
I'm surprised Hudlin didn't do it and say, no, African dinosaurs are different.
They were never extinct. They've been around forever.
Just chilling out, right?
That's right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Spin rack.
Out.